Sunday is Free Talk with Mr. B. Hello, hello, and welcome. It's quite early here in Houston, Texas. It's approaching 8:30, and we're so excited to be on again. Around the world in Dubai, it's around 5:30, and we look forward to talking about or continuing to talk about this subject. Last week we were talking about teaching, and we thought it was just an amazing pattern of giving back when we're talking about teaching. So today we wanted to continue this conversation and to bring in some of the feedback, and welcome Dedra and Sameena. Sameena?
Hi, good evening, everyone. And hi, friends on Facebook. We are live here. So as Mr. B mentioned, we are going to continue talking on teaching and how teaching is a very important gift. And sometimes it can also go wrong. You know, what we're teaching to someone can also go wrong. While we spoke a lot about, how teaching could help someone and how teachers have helped us to get where we are today. And we were thanking our own teachers, and each of us spoke about our experiences with particular teachers in our classrooms and schools and everything. So I also like to share that, at times when you are teaching something to someone, that lesson may just go wrong. And we don't know how and when it might go wrong. It might go wrong just there, while the child is there at school, or while the student is there in college, or it may even go wrong at a later stage in his life when he's using the lesson wrong way. So there are many things one needs to think about and go deeper into this aspect of, when you're teaching something, how is the other person or student receiving it, or how is he going to apply the lesson to his own life. So just on that note, I'll have Ms. Dedra jump in and talk to us about this. What are her experiences and what does she have to say about it?
I really can tell you a lot about that, because one thing I'd like for teachers to remember is that teaching is kind of like a mentorship, and a mentor is kind of like a superhero in a way. And what do they tell superheroes? With great power comes great responsibility. And when you're overly critical and you're overly demeaning to a student, you can demotivate them, and you can make it impossible for a person to see the gifts that they have and their strengths. You can make it hard for them to work through the weaknesses that they have, and they might give up the power to fight through some of their difficulties, particularly when it comes to, say, special needs. I've had some experiences with that, dyslexic students, who come to school and they can't learn how to read as fast as some of the other children, and due to lack of understanding of dyslexia, or maybe just plain ignorance of mental health issues, teachers may imply that they're lazy, or they just don't want to work so hard, and that's very, very crippling, to a student who is really doing their best. I think that perhaps a bit of sensitivity training would be a great idea, for the education profession in general. Now, let me extend that to moms too. I mean, in Islam, we're taught that the mother is literally the first teacher of the children. We are the first teacher when we have a kid, and the same rule applies, that it's very easy to say or do something that would demotivate that child, from ever wanting to try or ever feeling like they can try. When that happened to me personally with my father, he had trouble with math courses in school. And I remember being pulled aside, in junior high when we were about to start algebra. And he said, well, I was terrible at math, so you probably will be too. So let's get started early, to learn algebra, because you're really going to need to work hard to keep up your grades. And I had it in my mind that I would be bad at math then, like really bad, because when your parent tells you something like that, you believe them. You completely believe them that you will be bad at math. Now, when my husband was studying to become a psychologist, he learned testing. That was one of the big things, IQ testing, personality testing, everything. And of course, we were the practice cases and for him and every test he learned. We all know our IQs, we know our personality inventories, we know everything about our entire profiles. And when he tested my IQ, it seemed that not only, thanks God, it was in the gifted range, it was really high in numbers. In particular. Now I have a son that actually people will meet in the next podcast, and you meet nice day. He's like a math whiz. He's getting a master's degree in math. He's like, he's the kind of, you don't even recognize it as numbers anymore. It's just, symbols at this point. I could have been like him. Maybe he got it from me. You don't even know. But my father, because of what he said, there you go. One statement from a parent can ruin everything. So be careful. You have a lot of power, and you shouldn't use it just frivolously.
Absolutely. And even in the expectation from the teachers in school, I'm sure it happens every day, even now, where they dump everything on the student all at once without even understanding that not all of them are going to receive it the same way. I think, I completely agree with what you said. And each parent is very, very important. While the parents do their part at home, the teachers also need to understand that each child is coming from a different background. And if they could just get into that and give that extra care for each student, I'm sure all the students will be much more winning than rather than just passing and doing that tick mark off that I finished the class. It would be more rewarding to kind of understand the child's situation and then help the child learn at its own pace. And I saw Professor Mia come in.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, Professor Mia.
Yes, assalamu alaikum and good morning to you. It's lovely to be here.
Great. So we're talking about, how teaching is a wonderful gift and how it has changed all our lives. And just now, Ms. Dedra was talking about how a student, or right from the age when the child is like very little at home, the mom is the first teacher, and how it can impact the child on what you tell the child. So I'm sure you have a lot of experiences at your side too. So what do you have to say about, how can lessons go wrong, and what are some things we need to keep in mind to ensure that doesn't happen?
Well, I have to agree with whatever she's just said. Sister Dedra is right on the spot and quite a lot of stuff. Another very key factor that comes across, especially when, you have to sit and counsel some kids, is they will say to you, my sibling doesn't get spoken to in the same way I get spoken to. And then you wonder whether it's just a verbal method, but it's not. It's actually the tone that is being used in certain ways. So, for example, in a household that has 3 children, a mom or a dad will speak to the first child in a specific tone, the middle child in a specific tone, and the baby in a specific tone. All of these variances actually carry weight when it comes to how to educate your child and what your child is getting out of you. And that applies to schools as well. So it's a small thing, a tone of voice, but it carries a lot of weight when it's actually pushed across to someone, especially when it's a child who's a sponge, who's trying to get everything they can from you. And so I agree with everything she said, and I just wanted to add on that. When it comes to lessons that go wrong, when it comes to my country here in South Africa and all of Africa, one of the biggest educational problems we have is the number of children. So whilst I do agree that you have, to understand the kids a little bit more, to give them a little bit more time, the educators in areas of countries don't have that energy level anymore, because they're forced to rather finish the syllabus with a certain number of kids because stats are important for government, as opposed to actually just getting the child educated. So it's literally all about not just the teacher anymore. The teacher has to now encompass many other roles, and that's one of the biggest problems out there. But yet you'll find kids still find solace in being in a classroom. Sometimes it's their getaways. And the teachers tend to have bonds with certain children that really build those kids, like Dedra was saying. And sometimes a parent doesn't even recognize that in a child, but the teacher does. And the teacher can actually be the one to push that child to grow and become even more. And that's key, that's key, that's crucial. So I love the topic, the art of giving back in terms of teaching. Teaching is a gift itself. Life in itself is a lesson we all learn from. So what we get from parents, teachers, all are contributing factors. But yeah, I love it.
Yes, and I do have a very interesting question for all of us here. Before I get into that, I would like to hear from Mr. B also on what are insights of it.
I mean, I put that in the art of giving back, and I listed a story about a movie I actually saw that I used as an example, but that was Nugget number 14 in the art of giving back. You can see this on my webpage, freetalkwithmrb.com, and everyone can have it on Amazon. And I think there's a few more copies in the stores in Dubai, the art of giving back. My claim is, like, when people say we always did it that way, especially when you're teaching someone how to do it, how to do something, is the part that bothers me. Because when we always did something a certain way, it's very possible we could have been doing it wrong all the whole time. And so sometimes people teach it. And here I heard stories of like how to bake something in the oven, and the mom or the grandmom always cut the ends off of this pie or cake or something. And everyone thought that's how you do it. That's exactly how you do it. And when they finally inquired, it was the fact that grandma said that we just didn't have a bigger pan, or our oven wasn't wide enough. That's why we cut off the ends. And, and everyone thinks that's how you do it. And it says, no, over time we've gotten bigger ovens, so we didn't have to cut the ends off anymore. And so the way we teach something could still be a gift. It could still be the art of giving back, but it could still be the wrong instruction, not knowing where it initially came from. And so you can teach someone the wrong thing because we always did it that way.
Yes, very much. I completely agree with that. So now, we now would move on to something very interesting, which just came to my mind. That, okay, there are grown-up people in the world today. All of us are mature individuals, and we've learned our lessons when we are young, and we're still learning. But how do we help someone, or how much of a background lesson should we teach someone who is continuing to practice their lessons wrong? I don't know if I'm making myself clear.
It's a good lead-in. It's a good lead-in. I think I gave you a good lead-in.
Yes. So if someone's continuing to practice some wrong, have some wrong practices and do it the wrong way, like you said, cutting off the edges of the pie just because the oven was not enough. We have learned, but then just to fit in the corporate world, or just to win the case, or just to do something, someone's lying here, someone's lying there. And you've learned this lesson of integrity, and you've learned this lesson of being fair to people, but then somewhere you have forgotten those lessons. How do we remind people, and how much of it can we actually remind people, and how much of it can we teach as a background lesson for them to get back? What do you think about this in today's world?
I have something I can say about that. I don't know if it's exactly on topic with you, but I think it's related.
Yes.
One thing that I experience a lot when I go to teach writing workshops in schools is that people enjoy a certain statistic that I remind them of, that when children are 6 years old, their creative power, so to speak, is something like 80%. I mean, it's like a battery that's filled up to 80% capacity. I mean, they can literally imagine, think of anything, new things that haven't been, thought of before, stories. They can make up stuff, pretend, come up with ideas, maybe inventions, that maybe, in the future, I mean, in their pretend games, gadgets and, weird stuff, but who knows, it could be an actual thing one day. But then when they hit 12 years old, that creative power drops down to 2%. And that's because of school. It's because of school. And it's because they're now in a world where the only right answer is the answer that the teacher says. And the way to do things is the way the teacher says to do them, because the only thing that matters is getting marks. Marks are the only thing. You must make the A or the A minus or the B, and no less. And otherwise you're never going to get a job. You're never going to get out into the world. You're never going to fit in. So conformity becomes the norm, at that point. So what I do when I go to a writing workshop is I give them permission to break all of those rules and say, all right, we're going to think of a character that no one's ever used in a story before. You're going to give them a personality. You're going to explain who they are. They don't even have to be a human. They could be a ghost. They could be an alien. They could be a robot. They could be a phantom. They could be anything you like. And you don't have to worry about grammar or spelling or any of those rules. Throw it all out the window, write it in any way that you want, your own words, and just go for 10 minutes without stopping, just open it up, open the door, to that. And it's amazing. Their faces just light up like a light bulb, a candle. Somebody just lit a candle, in that third eye. It's amazing, So I think sometimes you have to remind yourself of that 6-year-old that knew how to make up stuff and come up with pretend stories and things, before somebody told you it was wrong. Somebody told you it was bad to do that. And you have to grow up and stop thinking about childish things now. I don't know, my opinion, but
no, it is there. It is perfectly right what you said. I was also talking about, adults who are going deeper into even someone who's divorcing a lady, or going deeper into someone who's not looking after their children. So, where are the lessons learned? How has the lesson gone wrong at that stage, and how much of it are we going to be correcting at that stage? For that matter, maybe someone who's been taught all their life to be responsible, to take care of your family, to respect your elders, so whatever it is, they have just completely forgotten. The lessons have gone wrong there. So life's experiences, maybe whatever has happened or situations, has made the person distant, has made the person so overwhelmed with whatever happened that, the actual lessons have gone away.
Well, that I think in those kind of cases would require some sort of therapeutic response. I mean, like you said, there has been a disturbance at some point or another, I mean, psychologically, and that's not a bad thing to go and recognize that you've had something went wrong, and you need to go back to the source and find out what exactly made you rebel against all of those things that you were taught, to take responsibility for family, for children, to be more sensitive. I mean, where did it go wrong? And maybe because it's never too late, it's never too late to go back and fix it all up,
And it doesn't mean it nullified. It didn't nullify the gift. The gift is still there.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they've not known how to use and value that gift. They have not probably known how to value the gift.
They just wanted to rebel against it sometimes, that happens, and do the opposite. Right. Yeah, sadly, we see a lot of that, I think, these days. In fact, it's like it's opposite day,
I was just wanting to kind of speak a little, because yes, we see too much of it. It's rampant everywhere nowadays. It's just in the world.
It really is.
Well, actually, teaching is really, really a gift, and I think even the students need to value the teacher for why the teacher is in class and for what the teacher is actually trying to teach us. And every teacher, I'm sure, has their own stress factors when they come to a class. How well am I prepared for this class? What is going to happen today? Are the students going to cooperate with me? But no matter what, but the teacher is
Yes,
there standing against these 30 odd children in the class and, doing their job.
absolutely. Yeah,
That
I
itself,
think that people are just not, I think many societies, particularly Western society, does not value the role of the teacher as much as they should. And the problem is they're seen as maybe even glorified babysitters, which is horribly demeaning, and that's
yes.
even demotivating for them, professionally. They start to think to kind of resent their job in some cases, and then their quality of teaching would go down, and it's a vicious cycle. And then that vulnerable little kid might be there and be get in receive the shrapnel from that, from that demotivated teacher, which is a terrible thing to do. So I think if us as a society, if we want to course correct, it
Yes.
really should start with appreciating the role of the educator, and making them feel motivated and appreciated, to do their job properly, and to encourage parents to kind of back off and let them do their work, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Mhm.
love, coming in to do workshops with children and everything. I just love it. And I've been invited many times, to be a teacher in a grade school, but I have never really truthfully, I haven't ever wanted to do it. I'm more comfortable teaching on a university level. And
Mhm.
I'm going to be very brutally honest with you why I feel that way, because I don't have to deal with the parents, at a university level.
Yeah.
You never have to see their parents. And
I know, but probably
because
the parents are
parents
just,
sometimes are
Yeah.
helicopter parents, that stay around there, and they think that every child, their child is the next, Albert Einstein, and they should be getting special treatment, and they should be making A's when they don't deserve it.
Mhm.
I mean, they just need to let the teacher do their job, and sort of
Yeah.
back off and let them have their reign,
That
you
same
know.
that same question, how would Professor Mia see it?
Well, I just want to add two things. One is what Dedra is saying is correct. I mean, many of the times when you go to a parent meeting at a school, for example, a teacher would say to the parent, I really think that your child should be A, B, and C and do C, E, F, and G or whatever. And the parent is actually very evasive to listen to what the teacher is saying.
Mhm.
Parents nowadays are
Or
very quick to
offended
blame a teacher for the
sometimes.
wrongs of the child. No parent wants to actually take the responsibility of what a wrong the child is doing. It's always, well, I'll leave my child with you at school and then it's your responsibility. Hell no, it's not. I'm sorry to say the word. The teacher only has specific responsibilities with your child. You, as the
Yeah,
parent, need to be the parent.
for sure.
But in response to Sameena's question earlier on, I think she asked about, if things are going wrong and you keep doing them wrong, but you're not changing anything. The key factor to change anything is awareness. You got to be aware that something is being done wrong, feel that it's wrong, know that it's being done wrong, and then be able to know that you need to change it to become right. And that applies across the board. If you're not aware of something being wrong, you're not going to be able to know that you need to change it in the first place. And sometimes the lemons keep dropping. You keep getting knocks all over the place. It's because you're just not listening to that. And your awareness is sometimes merely just your intuition. And that's your teacher. Your ultimate
Yeah.
teacher is your creator that's teaching you. You're in the wrong zone. You need to pick up. You need to grow and go. And that's what it's about. And when you come to teaching specifically, remember, it's not just academia that's important about teaching. It's life that's about teaching. So it's academic versus life when it comes to our children and our students. And that's where the art of the giving back and teaching is really. The gift of academia, yes, but the gift of how that applies to living their lives is what's crucial. And that's what's important for me.
And very
Yeah.
nice, because it gives
That's
me a
very
chance.
nicely put.
Yeah, if it's okay, Sameena, give me a chance to state what I was thinking, because life
Sure.
teaches us the lesson. And we've been speaking about teachers, and we're not picking on a classroom or anything like that, because life teaches us many, many lessons. and we are taught in many, many ways, angles, and forms. And so as we get these teachings and lessons, generically speaking, they are a wonderful gift, especially when given back to us freely. Whether we were directly spoken to or just listening on the wayside, we're getting these teachings, learning, and benefiting. But there are times that we must be careful because not every gift is good and not every teaching is appropriate to adopt because it can bring us harm. And so as we're coming down to the close, we can start thinking along the lines of what is the gift. And when we initially said from last week about the idea of getting a fish compared to learning how to fish, we were thinking about life lessons that sustain us all the way through our lives. And that's what we're looking for. That's what we're appreciating. And if we're changing, like ignoring the gift and becoming a different kind of husband or a different kind of wife or a different kind of employee or a different kind of employer, then we're invalidating the beauty of the gift, we're ignoring it, and we're not using it, plain and simple. And so that's not the idea. It becomes a gift if we can really make it a gift, because life has these lessons.
Yes. I think you've summarized it perfectly.
I appreciate it, because I appreciate what Sister Mia was saying, because it's very important to recognize how life teaches us. And in my home with my children, I tell them kind of indirectly, if you're not learning what I'm telling you, someone else is going to tell you, or life is going to teach you this lesson one way or the other. So it was best that they listened to what I was sharing at the time.
True.
Yes.
Modeling good behavior is the most important thing, because they learn by what you do more than by what you say.
Correct.
You know, I really do believe that about parenting. It's 100 times more important to behave in a way you would like to see them behave.
Yes.
Yeah, I try. I don't always succeed, especially in traffic.
Oh, Lord.
The curse words blurred out, but other than that, just kidding.
It's okay. No, it was really beautiful. I think we wrapped up the subject well, and we really look forward to continuing in the art of giving back with all of its nuggets. We're going to go into nugget number 15 next week. And as we continue on down this road, we're really looking forward to the feedback from everyone. And for you guys all being on, I really appreciate that. And look forward to continuing the art of giving back on Free Talk with Mr. B.
Sure. See you next week.
See you next week then.
Thank you.